Hello there, you're watching India Global on NDTV. I'm Maha Siddiqui. Over the next half an hour, we'll take you through the big international stories of the week, stories that specifically matter to India. But first, the headlines. The Khalistan friction resurfaces. NSA Ajit Doval meets his UK counterpart Tim Barrow, seeks action against Khalistan activists. India summons the Canadian envoy over threats to Indian diplomats in Canada. India hosts the first Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. 6 years after becoming a full member, the summit takes place virtually. India calls for respecting sovereignty and territorial integrity in connectivity projects, pointing towards China. And in a jibe at Pakistan, it says that there should be no double standards on terrorism and that cross-border terrorism needs to stop. Taiwan opens its representative office, TECC, in Mumbai. Taipei signals strategic move. TECC aimed at expanding trade with India. Meta launches Twitter rival Threads. The app is off to a strong start with 30 million sign-ups. On the first day, Twitter threatens to sue Meta over Threads. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has denied being soft on Khalistani radicals. He said that Canada has always taken serious action against terrorism, rebutting criticism that his government has been lax on pro-Khalistan activists within the country. This after India expressed serious concern over escalating activities by pro-Khalistan elements in Canada. It summoned the Canadian High Commissioner after threats were circulated via posters against India's High Commissioner in Ottawa and Consul General in Toronto.
Poster like this one supporting Khalistan movement is a common sight here in Toronto. And now there's another rally which is being organized supporting Khalistan movement on 8th of July. This comes after the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Khalistani leader who was also on the wanted list of NIA. The Khalistani supporters allege that he was assassinated by Indian agencies, and that's the reason they want to organize this rally and gather more strength for this movement.
Amidst all this, the Canadian Prime Minister has denied allegations that his government is soft on Khalistan supporters for electoral gains.
They are wrong. Canada has always taken extremely seriously violence and threats of violence. We've always taken serious action against terrorism, and we always will. We have an extremely diverse country, and freedom of expression is something that we have, but we will always make sure that we are pushing back against violence and extremism in all its forms.
This, as India had asked Canada to urgently act against extremists who deliberately blamed Indian diplomats and security agencies for killing 45-year-old designated terrorist and Khalistan Tiger Force chief Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Our sense is that these posters inciting violence against our diplomats and our diplomatic premises abroad are unacceptable, and we condemn them in the strongest terms. We have called on the Government of Canada to take all steps to ensure the safety of our diplomats and security of our diplomatic missions in Canada. It is a matter of concern that freedom of expression and speech is once again being misused by anti-India elements based in Canada.
So the divide between Khalistani supporters and Indian supporters is growing here in Canada. Of late, it's been seen that Canada is keen on improving their diplomatic relations with India.
Meanwhile, after the San Francisco Indian consulate was attacked and vandalized, US Ambassador to India, Eric Garcetti, has said Washington is doing everything to ensure the safety of Indians.
You know, as a diplomat myself, I want to say we take very seriously our obligations, and those people that do this critical work cannot be attacked, threatened, cannot see firebombs or acts of arson. The places that they go and work, they are people with families, they are individuals, and we will do everything we can under the law in the United States to protect them.
Across continents, a poster promoting a Khalistan Kill India rally outside the Indian High Commission in London on July 8 has surfaced. British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly has now reacted, saying any attacks on the mission are completely unacceptable.
As you are aware, we've had problems with the security of our mission in London. We have taken up this latest issue of threats against our diplomats with the UK authorities.
On the eve of the Freedom Rally, rumours of the death of Gupwant Singh Pannu, a proscribed terrorist, in a car accident that surfaced close on the heels of Nijjar's mysterious killing. These have now been denied.
Now all eyes are set on how big this rally would be and what would Canada's be response for this rally, and what about the safety of Indian High Commission and the officials working there. In Toronto, Vikram Chaudhary for NDTV.
Meanwhile, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met his UK counterpart Tim Barrow. India has asked UK to act against pro-Khalistan activists, including arresting and deporting them to India. Let me now go across to our guests. We have with us Terry Milioski, who has worked with CBC News. We also have with us Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, and we are also being joined by Puneet Sahni, expert on evolution of Sikh identity and Khalistan issue. Coming first to you, Terry, does the Canadian side recognize that the issue has in fact caused friction and are willing to react to it faster than we have seen them do in the past?
They do realize, and they are not prepared to do much about it. They realize, because of course this has been going on for decades now, that the Indian government has been banging the table and say, why don't you lock them up? Why don't you crack down on these Khalistanis that are causing tensions in our relationship? You just let them get away with anything. And the Canadians for decades now have been saying, sorry, we're not going to abolish free speech because it would be convenient to India. We'll work with you where there are, if there's any violence, where there are breaches of the law, then we will step in and these people will feel the pain. But more than that, we're not going to do. What both sides, I think, fail to realize is that causing friction is the point. For the Khalistanis, their whole game is to cause friction with these displays of martyr posters honoring mass murderers, with the diorama of celebrating the assassination of Indira Gandhi, and now with these latest posters naming all kinds of Indian diplomats all over the world as murderers. It's complete poppycock, of course, but causing friction is the point. They annoy everyone. So what happens is they get to pose as the defenders of Sikh rights. When governments push back, they say, you see, they're repressing us. And then they feed their whole purpose in life, their whole game, which is to control and to exploit the wider Sikh community, which for the most part can't stand them. And they do that by expanding their turf. Look, here's one provocation. Here's another provocation. Well, you didn't do much about those martyr posters. Now, here's a bigger martyr poster. Here's a truck with the diorama of Indira Gandhi's assassination. So I think both governments need to recognize the subtleties and the sophistication of the Khalistanis' game, rather than just banging the table and say, lock them up. We got to do a little better than that, I think.
Right. I want to go across to Puneet now. Puneet, Terry has said that in most parts, a vast majority of the Sikhs are not able to even stand this kind of narrative that is being developed by pro-Khalistan activists. What is your understanding of the situation?
It's a very small fringe, which is, doing all these acts of lunacy. And, the Sikhs are actually the biggest victims of these people, is absolutely right. And you don't have to believe me, because, I'm a patriot or something. I can just give you the data, for example. So, to take an example, in 1997, this Khalistanis, so I'm talking about, and, there was an election in Gurdwara where they were, fighting and, swords were involved, helicopters had to come, sniffer dogs had to come. And the Supreme Court of their British Columbia got involved, like, what the hell is happening? And they were like, okay, there is a fight for control of Gurdwara. And the Supreme Court said, okay, we will monitor the election. And in that election, it is just a temple. Like if you have like a Gurdwara election in Delhi, the population is pretty comparable. Even now, after a generation, like you have 3,000 or 4,000 people participating in a Gurdwara election. But back a generation, believe you me, I think 37,000 people came out to vote because they were like, okay, finally, there will be a proper election because the Supreme Court is monitoring. And what was the result of that election? First to last, Khalistanis lost all the seats.
So, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, coming to you, what needs to be done for helping other countries understand why this issue ends up causing friction and is a grave issue?
Well, I think that's very unfortunate that something which had petered out, something which was not in anyone's mind, should now be revived and revived in a very conscious manner. Because any country which values its own citizens should realize that violence against any other country would ultimately result in violence against their own soil and against their own people. Let me give you one example. I think it was in 1985 that the Canadian government got to know that some Khalistani extremist elements were planning to either hijack or put a bomb in one of the Air India aircrafts. They even saw, the intelligence services even saw the rehearsals for it held in Canada somewhere. And they also had telephonic records of their plans. Yet they did nothing about it. And what happened eventually was that despite Indian requests that please check the baggage which goes into Air India aircrafts, because we suspect some sabotage activity to take place. The bomb was put in the baggage of an Air India aircraft and it exploded, resulting in nearly 330 deaths. Some of them may have been Canadian citizens. I mean Canadians of Canadian extraction. I don't mean only Indians who had taken up Canadian citizenship. So my point is that ultimately it also affects their own flesh and blood.
So that brings me to the next question, and Terry, I want to come to you. The Indian government has in the past accused and indicated that pro-Khalistan activists are pandered to for vote bank politics.
I think many of your viewers will probably already be aware, but it bears repeating. Remember, Justin Trudeau's government is a minority government that is sustained by the votes of a minority left-wing party, the NDP, which is led by Jagmeet Singh, who is a Khalistani sympathizer. It is not much more complicated than that, although beforehand, when they weren't sustained by the NDP, the Liberals played pretty much the same game. They liked having what politician doesn't enjoy the idea? They go into an election time and they go to the Gurdwara and the big shots there say, we can deliver you 10,000 votes, all in a nice, neat package. They'll follow our leadership and we'll deliver you this a victory in this election. But if you don't sing our song, we can defeat you. Oh, okay. Well, so tell me the words of the song. So that's what happens. And remember also, something that your viewers may not know, is that federal elections in Canada very often turn on just these few ridings in Ontario and in British Columbia where Sikhs are predominant. So 5 or 6 going this way or that way, that can make the election. Where they're what we call swing ridings, which decide elections. And so they have to be courted by politicians very carefully. And don't think that the Liberals are by any means the only ones who play that game. Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, they all do it.
So, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, final question to you. What more can be done by India to engage with and help others understand what the situation really means for the country?
It is a long battle with ISI, who have prepared well for this for almost close to 2 decades. And we should be prepared that now that they are confident that they have had things like referendum 2020, which got delayed because of COVID, and the posters, which are very, very unfortunate. they are not going to stop just by our pleadings with these countries. We have to do something more. ISI will not listen to any of our reasons or pleadings, but these countries can be made to understand the gravity of the situation. If they don't, then we have to take concrete actions, be it the reduction in the size of the embassy, or be it a message that if any harm comes to any of our diplomats, we cannot stop someone who in revenge wants to take a similar action against their diplomats in India. So I think we have to give up only the conversation part of diplomacy and get down to hard part of diplomacy now, because otherwise a person like Trudeau, who I must say is most uncaring and most unstatesmanlike in his reading of the situation and his reaction to India's requests.
All right, I'll have to thank all my guests on that note. It's a serious issue for India, something that India wants a response and a stern response from countries like UK, Canada, Australia, where we have seen the pro-Khalistan activists, in fact, even US making some sort of noise at the moment with regards to one rally that is to be held on the 8th as well. Now, let's turn our attention now to another big story. One of the senior most officials from the Ministry of External Affairs, Asaf Saeed, visited the state of Palestine this week. During the visit, he called on Prime Minister Mohammad Ibrahim, Foreign Minister Riyad Al-Maliki and diplomatic advisor to the President Majidi Khaldi. India has been extending various forms of economic assistance to Palestine amounting to approximately $130 million, including $70 million worth of development assistance. India has also provided budgetary support to about the tune of $39 million to the Palestinian Authority. Here's a conversation with the media advisor of the Palestinian Embassy in New Delhi, Abid Abu Zajeb, on the significance of the visit. I have with me the media advisor of the Embassy of Palestine. Many thanks for speaking with NDTV.
Thank you so much.
My first question is with regards to the visit of senior Ministry of External Affairs official Asaf Saeed to Palestine. The tweet from the Indian side says that both sides are looking at more cooperation in other sectors. What specifics can you share with us?
This is a very important visit to Secretary His Excellency Asaf Saeed and Joint Secretary Wana, Mr. Hardeep, to Palestine in this specific time, in time of Israeli aggression on Jenin camps. This is a political visit, and this is also to have a look and looking forward and follow the Indian project in the West Bank and in Palestine and open some of them and looking for the needed of a new project of which can India given and present to the Palestinian Authority. They have do important political interviews, such as Mr. Asaf Saeed has met the Prime Minister, Dr. Mohammed Ishtaya. He's met the President Abbas advisor, Dr. Majdi Khaldi. He's met the Health Minister, Dr. Mai Kela, and he's open a specific health center in Ramallah, and he's also make a good meeting with and interact with Palestinian leader in civil societies and in the politicians.
What more expectation is there from the Indian side as far as Palestine is concerned, considering that over the last few years we have seen India's deeper engagement with Israel?
See, if we recall the important visit to the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi to West Bank to Palestine for the first time in February 2018, we have a deal together and signed 5 important MOU, cost 42 million in 5 projects in Palestine. This is infrastructures and mechanism of support the political, the economic sectors and in different various programs. What is important is Palestinian Authority and Palestinian people is still looking forward for India to give in the same way with the economic support, political support in the multilateral, international fora. Regarding your question about Israel, it's related to Indian foreign policy. It's related to the Indian foreign policy. India can decide this, but we are looking to keep stand India in the same basic principle in the historic relationship, in the historic foreign policy to support Palestinian cause and Palestinian freedom such as the past.
Okay. My final question to you, are we looking forward to any visits by senior ministers or such visits coming forward?
It's supposed to be done before in March. It's scheduled to visit to His Excellency Shri Shankar to Palestine, but because of the presidency of India to G20 and the busy schedule of the all Indians leaders, so I think, and as I know from the Minister of External Affairs, India is pushed forward and seeks to complete this important political visit to Palestine before the end of this year. And we welcome the Minister of External Affairs to Palestine and looking forward to this important visit.
Many thanks for speaking with NDTV.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's move on now and a quick wrap of the other big international stories in around the globe.
Israel's two-day operation starting Monday was its biggest in the West Bank in years. The military said that the operation targeted infrastructure and weapon depots of militants. At least 12 Palestinians, most confirmed as militant fighters, and one Israeli soldier were killed. Violence in the West Bank has worsened over the past 15 months with increased Israeli raids, Palestinian street attacks, and settler rampages in Palestinian villages. Tensions continue to run high in France as the police brutality debate in the country is still on the rise, even though French President Emmanuel Macron announced yesterday that the peak of the riots has now passed. A series of civil disturbances in France began on 27 June following the killing of 17-year-old Nahel Merzouk by a police officer. A fundraiser for the French police officer who killed Merzouk last week has reached over $1.089 million in donations. The US is finally destroying the last of its declared chemical weapons stockpile to comply with the 1997 International Chemical Weapons Convention. This completes a decades-long campaign to eliminate a stockpile that by the end of the Cold War totaled more than 30,000 tons. By destroying the munitions, the US is officially underscoring that these type of weapons are no longer welcome in the battlefield. Secret Service agents found a bag of powder during a routine inspection in an area of the White House that is accessible to tour groups. The discovery of the cocaine has churned a whirlwind of rumors and accusations, with many fingers pointing at Hunter Biden, who has a history of addiction in the past. The Secret Service has taken over the investigation, though they have maintained their stance of not commenting on ongoing inquiries. Belarusian President Lukashenko said that the mutinous chief of Russia's Wagner Group was still in Russia with thousands of fighters. Lukashenko helped broker a deal with Putin to end last month's mutiny, the gravest challenge to the president in his 23 years in power, under which Wagner's chief was supposed to stand down his mercenaries and move to Belarus in exchange for charges being dropped. Taiwan announced that it is opening an economic and cultural center in Mumbai, its third after Delhi and China. In recent years, India has sought to invite Taiwan semiconductor majors as a part of an effort to create chip manufacturing capabilities. India has been very keen on having a manufacturing for Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, the world's largest chip maker whose clients include Apple.
That's it then for today. See you again next Friday. Bye-bye.